Okay, so today we're working on a customer's Ford Explorer XLT. Right now, we just got it pulled in and we got the battery pulled out of it. We are finished start pulling apart the timing cover and getting to the water pump and timing chains because we need to replace the water pump and timing chains in it. There's other work that needs to be done to it. I'll probably put it up here somewhere of what we need to get done. But we're gonna get started on this today. Hopefully have it done very soon so we can get it back to them and then start driving it again. But I will shoot another video whenever we get more done. Alright, so we're back at the Explorer. Just wanted to show y'all what we've been doing. So we just got the fuel lines off, got the air box off. So there's the fuel line right down there. And got that off, got all the clips and bolts down there. And we're tearing it apart so we can get to the water pump and timing chains. And that'll be the first thing that we deal with. Anything you want to say, Keith?
No, you pretty much got it covered. Fixing to pull the upper intake. We've got to get manifolds pulled. We've got to get valve covers pulled, timing cover pulled, injectors, fuel lines, fuel rails. Fuel lines are already off. Fuel rails are still on here, but you can't pull the fuel rails until you pull the intake. So, woohoo! Alright guys, so we got the upper intake off now. Now we got to work on getting all the wiring stripped back and the harness moved out of the way. And then we can start pulling the valve covers. Anything you have to say on the matter, Quinn?
No, not really. Alright, so draining coolant out of here right now. End of the day, and it's car's already pissing.
That good green stuff.
At -60.
It's some pretty stout looking stuff.
Alright, so we're wrapping everything up for today on the Ford Explorer. We got the cover off to reveal part of the timing. And so we're finna cover it up for the end of the day. And we'll see y'all tomorrow.
Hasta mañana. Somebody did not do the best on this, man.
Well, no. They may have thrown a chain at it, but they didn't go all the way through it.
No, there's rust here.
Alright. So what we're doing here is a timing chain on a 3.5 Ford. Keith has torn the motor down essentially with valve covers, timing chain cover, all that off. We've also got the exhaust manifolds off because we had studs that were missing. So we're putting all new studs and everything in the cylinder heads. Alright, so what we're doing now is we're going to rotate the engine over and line up the timing marks before we pull everything apart. That way we've got the cams and everything in the right orientation. And then we'll have to lock the cams down, pull the chain, and then start pulling the chain and the components and everything. So for now, we're going to rotate it over and get this in the right position. All right, so what we have now is the timing chain lined up and all the timing. Let me show you here. So what we have found is whoever had done the timing chain before has the cams off by one mark. If you can see that one's off and that one's off. I don't know if you can see the crank mark down there, but anyway, we got it lined up where it needs to be. So we're going to now lock the cams in place. You got to take these oil tubes off so you can get to the flats on the cams, so you can lock them in place so they won't move on you. That way when you take everything apart, the cams don't just spring in the different directions because of the tension that's on the cam lobes versus the valve springs. So we're gonna do that and get everything kind of prepared to start taking all the timing chain equipment apart. Okay, so we are continuing to take this apart, and I figured I'd go ahead and document what's going on here. This engine's had timing chain noise. It wasn't running real well. It had a timing chain done on it at some point. We were getting ready to lock down the cams, and let me show you what I was talking about. This are the flats that are on the cams here and here, and we need to access those, so that's why we took the tubes off, the oil tubes that were on here. And so we take these solenoids out that go in here and here, like these back here. That way you can access these flats and lock them down. When you take these out, which we've got replacements for them, the kit comes with everything, including new phasers, sprockets. You want to inspect these for debris or anything that are in them. Kind of gives you an indication you've got, you know, any of the wear and stuff in the motor can get caught in these screens where the oil flows. So we've got obviously some wear in this motor. It's getting some metal flake in it. Not surprising, it's a little bit older vehicle, but you can see that's actually quite a bit. You can see the metal flakes in there. Those screens are to keep it from getting caught inside the solenoids, so the solenoids don't get trash in them and get locked up or quit moving. But that's obviously a good indication the motor's not the healthiest either. So we're going to do a good flush and a decarb and everything on this motor, try to give it its best ability to keep living. But if you look at that tensioner, I've been looking at the guides and kind of realizing a lot of the guides hadn't been replaced. You can kind of see that this secondary cam tensioner is not in place properly. The guides on the sides of it are actually broke off. There's a good possibility that did not get replaced either, as it should have been when the timing chain got done. We'll of course make sure that gets replaced, but that was probably bouncing around or not working properly, so it was jumping up and down, beating the crap out of it, and that's why the guides on either side are gone and it has been able to rotate. I am sure that is one of the noises we were hearing, as this thing was making a lot of chattering and noise from the timing chain. So anyway, we're going to lock these cams down and get back into it, or get back at it, get this thing torn down.
Up top, right?
Yeah. All right, so as you'll see, our ingenuity. They actually make a timing lockdown plate that goes, it's basically just a flat plate with some flats cut out in it that goes down and then gets bolted into place. What we've done on the fly is take 2 wrenches on each cam, zip tie them together, zip tie them through where the cam actuators solenoids went, and then to keep them from sliding off, just took a nut and a bolt and wedged that just with hand tension, not tight or anything, against the first lobe on the cam, and zip tied those down so they wouldn't fall out. And that way, as you can see, oh, that was the ratchet on the crank. As you can see, that's not going anywhere. So now the cams are locked into place. On the back is a little bit easier because the cam lobes, as you can tell, are right there, so you don't have to worry about the wrenches sliding off. So if we zip tie the cams together, zip tie them through the actuator holes, and now the cams are locked into place. So now what we can do is take the bolts off of, I'll come around, take the bolts off of the tensioner, pull the tensioner, then we can pull the chain guides pull the, actually you have to pull this cam actuator off of each exhaust cam, then you can get this cam or the timing chain out and get all of this off of here. Then we'll go ahead and pull both of the cam gears. There's a tensioner and a chain attaching them together, get those off, and then take the water pump out and swap the water pump out. After that, it's clean everything up and put it right back together in the reverse order. Okay, so as you can see, we've got the primary chain and the cam sprockets and the cam chains off. This is what the backside of the cam sprockets with the cam chain looks like. All right, you'll notice you've got timing marks and, timing marks that line up with the marks on the chain. So those were in time while the primary chain was one tooth off. So that's going to explain why it was running rough, because the cams were in sync with each other, but they were not in sync with the crank. So the timing was off. On top of what we found is this is the tensioner for those cam chains. Goes right there. This one, as I'd shown earlier, the top of it was all beat to crap and it had rotated in position. The back one, that cap is completely gone. And the tensioner, the top of it is just gone. So it was not pushing at all on this chain, which means this chain was actually probably slapping around a lot, which was a lot of the noise we heard. That also means the timing of these two cams was not consistent. It was constantly moving and floating around. So the engine essentially couldn't run well. Sure as hell was not just out of time, but constantly changing timing, at least on the rear head.
That could be that random miss.
No, that most definitely would be causing random misses.
Yep.
Anything there in a while.
Okay, so from this stage, the next thing to do is we pull these guides,
I don't want
You sure?
Yeah.
pull the water pump, and we're going to clean everything up. You can tell that there's an excessive amount of silicone in here. We found a ton of silicone in the oil pan and on the pickup tube and the screen. So we want to make sure we clean all that up, not only just to get a good clean seal when we put it back together, but we don't want to leave all that in there. And then there are bits and pieces, like right up in here, are chunks of timing chain guides, all in these like little cavities that we're gonna have to get all that cleaned up and out of there. And we found some of that down in the oil pan too. So we'll get all this cleaned up and ready to go. At this point, I think it's like 3 o'clock or something. So we'll just spend the rest of the day kind of getting this all prepped, getting ready to go back in the morning. We've been also cleaning up intake manifold, valve covers, fuel lines, everything that came off the top and the outside of the motor. So that stuff will be ready to go back together. Already got all the new seals and everything on it ready to go. We've got the cats all cleaned up. We got new exhaust gaskets and everything going on those. We got new studs going in the heads because some of the studs were either broken or missing. And we've got some electrical on some of these injector connectors and coil pack connectors. I went ahead and ordered replacements for all of them because we had a handful of them that were broken. So we'll replace those. So tomorrow we should be able to get all this back together and get at least a step closer to wrapping this up. But I think today we're just going to finish off on cleaning everything and getting it ready to go back together. So there's our Ford 3.5 timing chain disassembly.
Alright guys, this is on the same 2014 that we did the timing check on. We said a bunch of it was missing. I was fixing to put the oil pan back on and realized that the oil strainer tube had something up in it. When I took it off, I have got a whole bunch of timing guide pieces And we're just gonna start cleaning this out a little. Oh wait, that's just a little bit of it. There's more. Now, when we say this thing is fucking starving, I wasn't joking. That's not all. There's more. There's more, but there's more. Now we'll spray this out a little bit and try to get it clean. Oh man, dude, no, it's still not clean. There's more. It's literally all. Oh, there's a whole, look. Ooh, that's not cool. That's chunk metal, brother. What in the hell? And look, I thought I got it all out. There's more. I'm glad I decided to take the tube down, you know?
Yeah.
Because, look, still more. We don't want any of that shit going through the tube and getting in our new stuff. That's all new timing. Getting fresh oil pumped through it. Not this. No, we're going to clean that out. That ain't going to work. It's going to have to be clean.
So bits and pieces of timing guide and timing shoes or tensioner shoes, pieces of an O-ring, chunks of sealant Permatex, and the metal retaining springs for what? The guides?
That's what holds the little tension guides.
Yeah,
Holds the small chain.
the small shoe, the bottom shoe, guide shoe or whatever.
Yeah, where the top rod goes up, that's on the rod, and then that shoe.
Wow.
Yep.
All in the oil pickup tube.
If it wasn't for that big piece, I would have never known. I seen it just sitting there,
And it was in the screen.
Yeah, it just where I looked up and seen yellow, so I was like, oh. Oh no.
Or don't have a motorcycle wreck. How about that?
Yeah, but you, no
Wait
matter.
a second. It's going to happen. It's not a matter of if.
That's why I said, no matter how much you're prepared.
Okay, so what we've got here is we're putting the new timing guides in. So we've got the main guide, which is the black piece right there, and then we've got the timing cam chain tensioner. Let me say that again. The timing cam chain tensioner. Still didn't say it right, but whatever.
Disconnect.
So what we had in here was that top shoe on the tensioner was completely gone off the old one, and neither side had a bottom shoe, which is a stationary guide. So there should be a top one and a bottom one, and this one had both of them missing, which means this chain was just bouncing and slopping around like crazy. And the one on the front here, it had the top shoe on the tensioner, but it was chewed to shit and about to completely come apart, and it was already breaking, and it didn't have a bottom one either. So both these cam chains had a ton of slop, which would have affected cam timing, not just in sync with the main timing chain, but also with each other. As the cams were moving, separate of each other, probably by a few degrees, along with rattling and making a bunch of noise. So we're making sure everything is going back together as it should with all brand new stuff accurately. Okay, so what we have now is we've got the timing sprockets, cam sprockets or gears in place and the chain in. As you can see, let me get the lighting right, there's tension on that chain. Once you put the sprockets in, you got the timing chain on and everything, because you put it all onto the cams as an assembly or dowel pins that you line it up with. You just take and push this down, the tensioner down. It's got a spring lock in it, so once you push down, it releases that. When you come back up, it pops up and puts tension on it. Before, this had no tension on this chain at all because the bottom guide shoe was missing, the tensioner shoe was missing, and the chain was just flopping around while running in operation. So now, as you can see, that's got tension against it, and it's oil pressure driven, so once the engine has oil pressure, it's going to push up against that even better. That's how that should be.
On the timing marks, we just run the red like that so we can see it. That's the timing mark. And then right here, I like to stick it where we can see it here. To the left timing mark. See, I already marked them over here. One that faces for that cylinder sideways. That's for this dowel pin. And actually, that's my timing mark, and you'll look for one more set of marks, and that's going to be the dowel pin. Dowel pin set on that mark. This dowel pin is going to be over here. So I'm going to put one more mark back here, which you won't never see the paint after the time you just put on there. Not a big deal. But now you've got a mark where you know we can put it into place. Now we're ready to try to set it.
Come over here, be his extra set of hands. Because once he gets them up there, he'll want his hands start bolts.
Bolts are in the bag right here, Quinn, on the table. That one's in.
We'll go ahead and get that bolt in there, Quinn.
And then me.
This one?
Yeah.
There's
Just
no.
yeah, hand start it. That way there's no chance of it falling off. And then we can fight to line up the back one, the exhaust cam.
Yeah, it seems like it's in there.
It's tight.
Okay. Yeah. Try to keep that chain out of the way. Now on this one, we're gonna have to do the same thing we did before with the wrenches, Justin.
All right. All right. So we had to kind of wiggle and jiggle our cam lock wrenches
Cam lock.
to get the second one lined up. The instructions will even tell you that you may have to move the cams around a little bit to get the dowel pins to line up. But as Keith was just telling us, doing the markings on the sprockets and the head and the chain just made it a little bit easier to know right where everything needed to be. So that might be a little trick that everyone might want to do when they're doing something like this. Okay. Yep. So now what we're doing is putting the chains, the main chain on. So you just line up the colored master link. There's probably not a master link, but the colored links with the marks on the cam. There's a black one on this one and a gold one on that one, and then a double black at the crank. So we know we got those lined up. So now what we do is put the guides on. So we're getting those put in place.
Okay.
That motherfucker runs out of cigarettes. He quits doing anything, huh? You can jack it up on that center axle.
All right.
Recorded.
All right. Well, we went ahead and pulled the upper intake when we did everything else, but we went ahead and decided after we put timing back together, because it has nothing to do with it anyway, but we was already going to be kind of that route. So we pulled the lower intake so we can go ahead and change all the seals, because a lot of people don't know, but these tubes are just O-ring seals. When they go bad, they leak underneath the intake and everything else. We're already doing the thermostat and had to pull all this loose anyway, so might as well pull the lower intake and pull that jacket tube. As you can see, I'm starting to take it out of here. I'm not done yet, but when we get further to it, there's a O-ring on the tube, and there's one built inside of the housing itself, and then on this other side it has another one. Usually comes in your kit, but like I said, we're getting it all pulled apart, and as you can tell up here right now, I cleaned one side of the intake off from all the oil leak, but I'm going to go ahead and let the camera guy come up here and check out the intake after being cleaned and the ones that were oil seeping. You want to be able to get good seal on everything, so, and that's not good seal. There's a bunch of oil buildup. Thing was 2 teeth out of time. We already got the timing done on it. We've got rags in it so trash won't get in it, but like I said, it's just make sure you always do that lower tube and pull the intake off. It's actually worth the time, because if you get a leak there, it's a big deal. It's a big enough hose. If it starts leaking, you're gonna lose all your water real fast. 2014 Ford Focus. I'm done. 2014 Ford Explorer XLT, the same motor we've been working on that we did timing. We have changed out all the injector plugs and the cool pack plugs. Well, not all of them, just all the front ones were broke and one back one was broke, but the rest of them are the originals. They're not broke, not damaged. All the injectors look good. And now we can start putting upper intake back on. All right, 2014 Ford Explorer XLT. I've said Focus 3 times this week. And we did all the work, and we was wondering why it don't have AC. It's because whoever routed them last time had routed them wrong, and the belt cut the lines in half. And there's the lines cut in half.